So tonight, we're going to be talking about remote ID, but we're going to be talking about it from the point of view of the drone tracking apps that have started to pop up. We're going to look at a particular news story of one app, and we're going to have a look at that app as well, and just talk about really how it works, that type of thing, and really, to see whether or not it's the issue that we thought it would necessarily be. Now, this is important for everybody. This is important not just for the US guys who have remote ID very much on them at the moment, technically happening, but it's not being enforced until December with manufacturers. But here in the UK and the EU, it's still something that's hanging over us. I would expect to see some form of remote ID here in the UK at some point. I'm not entirely sure 100% when that will be, because of course we've got the whole open category rejig going on, the whole open category so-called investigation coming up from the CAA. So I'm not sure when that will happen, and whether or not we will just continue with what was planned, which of course is the electronic built-in way of essentially doing remote ID, which would be much more on a localized basis. So we've got apps popping up here and there and everywhere. Obviously, we were expecting this type of flight radar 24 almost for drones coming. And yeah, I'll explain how that works as we actually come onto the app and really go through that. But as I say, this is an issue which is going to be impacting all of us in the hobby, not just in the States or the UK or anything from that point of view. And it's going to be interesting as well to see the subtle nuances as far as when this happens, who will have access to it and that type of thing here in the UK and EU, because here we're even changing our privacy rules here in the UK as well to come away from the EU ones. A whole other subject, but of course all of this will impact us here in the drone hobby as well. But certainly for you US flyers and with the FAA, it's affecting you right now. So it is going to be coming across, as I say, it's going to be coming across the Western world, frankly, how this is actually going to play. So let's have a look at this article. And this was an article by Geeksvana Singh over at Drone DJ, and talking about one of the apps that have been released to track nearby flights. And this is the app that we're also going to have a look at their website, and we're also going to have a look at the app itself. And as she says here, there's a new app on the market, and this one transforms any phone or tablet into a drone tracking device. The Czech startup Dronetag, which is developing remote ID compliance solutions for drone operators, and in fact they have one of their modules which has now been added to the FAA compliant list. It's a quite expensive module. It's for the commercial side of things. It's got all sorts of extras on there, not just the absolutes that it needs, and it's certainly built more for the worldwide market, even more so than just the United States. So, but certainly these guys are heavily invested in that industry. They've released a new mobile app called Drone Scanner, which is pretty much what it says on the tin, isn't it? Now, it's a free app. It's available for both iOS and Android devices, and it tracks all nearby flights using the remote ID data being broadcast by a drone. And as this says, obviously, remote ID is a feature that allows a drone to transmit information such as its identity, location, aircraft altitude, and controlled station or takeoff location. Most drones operating in the US airspace are required to have this remote ID capability by law. A drone can either have remote ID capabilities built in, or it could be outfitted with an external device to ensure compliance. So there we've got the difference between, as we know, the drones that are becoming complete from the manufacturer will have built-in standard remote ID, and then you're going to have the remote ID modules, which you can add to older aircraft, FPV drones, that type of thing, etc. So Dronetag makes an add-on remote ID device that can be mounted, as I was saying before. It's also developing a module for drone manufacturers that will be connectable with the flight controller for reliable remote ID transmission. So these guys are very much a Prague-based company, and they're very much in this whole remote ID world, as it were. Klaus, yes, it isn't active in the UK yet, but this is something which is certainly coming to within the EU drone rules, and also, therefore, at some point will have to come to the UK. Remote ID in some form will come to the UK, but this isn't right now. Right now, this is in the US as far as this being active. Of course, you can actually track drones using this app. I turned on the remote ID signal, the little built-in signal on one of my drones earlier, and it did pop up on the app. So you can actually use it right now. So how does Drone Scanner track nearby flights? Drone Scanner uses a mobile's Wi-Fi and Bluetooth receiver to pick up the data being transmitted by remote ID enabled drone. More specifically, the app leverages Bluetooth 4, 5, the Wi-Fi beacon, and Wi-Fi NAM protocols to extract detailed information about the drones that are flying nearby in real time. According to the app developers, you can use Drone Scanner to browse a detailed map with your location and all nearby aircraft, check the available data about the drones, including real-time height, direction, pilot identification, pilot position. So again, this is starting to feel a bit like a flight radar 24, isn't it, really, when you're looking at your aircraft or your loved ones coming who are landing in Heathrow and you're going to meet them, etc. You can track their plane coming across the ocean. It kind of feels a little bit like that, doesn't it? And then export collected drone data easily. So you can actually export the drone data that you capture. Dronetag says it will update the app continuously to reflect the latest European and US drone regulations, but it's not clear if the company will also take steps to ensure the information relayed, especially the location of the drone pilot, is not misused for any kind of violence or unprovoked confrontations by the app users. Now, with this section in particular, we're talking about the issue, of course, that with the FAA side of things, they are saying that the remote pilot's location has to be broadcast. So if you're using standard remote ID, so if you go out and buy a brand new drone, a DJI drone that has this built in, or if you update your drone to have the built-in version, then basically that's going to transmit everything, including your active location. And all of that data has to be transmitted by the drone. This app is obviously going to collect all of that data, and they've obviously said they're going to update it constantly to reflect the regulations, but does that actually mean that they're going to be showing the location of the pilots to everybody or not? But this is an open free app, so I would expect that it probably would do. Dronetag CEO told Drone DJ that they naturally reflect the regulatory requirements to provide the data in the app for anyone. Moreover, anyone can be assured that we don't misuse the data because the full implementation and code are published on GitHub. Anyone can dive into the code, add their comments, and even steer the future development of the app. So you can, again, has links there to download it, which I will put in the show notes below after this. Since the compliance deadline for operators in the UK isn't until September 2023, we don't expect to see many apps being tracked, etc. And moreover, Europe in a specific category becomes mandatory only in 2024. And as I say, here in the UK, we've got this whole sort of open category investigation coming up from the CAA. So I would expect there to be changes in terms of how we handle remote ID specifically for the UK. But it's going to be very interesting to see actually how that happens and how that actually looks. Now, the company themselves, Dronetag, as we were being told, are a European Prague startup, and they have a range of products around essentially data and drones. And this one here, they're talking about fly your drone safe and easy. So they're saying Dronetag develops a solution for safe and efficient drone traffic management in the European airspace. Now, if you remember, we were talking in one of our previous live streams regarding the wing delivery drone sort of coming down on what lines. They had their own app as well, and I wasn't sure about whether or not the people who want to have delivery drones, etc., the people with that kind of financial interest should be the ones developing apps for us to use. But this obviously is a company that are doing it separately in terms of just wanting the data. So drone identification, according to the new regulations, quick and easy. And they state, did you know the European Union Aviation Safety Agency, or EASA, as many of us know them, is planning new rules for drone operations. One of them requires all drones weighing over 250 grams must broadcast identification data during the flight. Dronetag offers an affordable and compact remote identification device that is compatible with all drones on the market. Just mount it to your drone and fly. So essentially, this is a remote ID module, but a simpler version for the EU market, essentially, was what they're talking about, the EASA marketplace. Again, whether or not the UK takes this up is a whole other side of things. Again, we have this talk, and we often worry when we start to see this kind of text, don't we, on these kind of websites and with these types of companies, of flight authorization in cooperation with the authorities, no more paperwork. And here they're talking about FRZs. So today, in order to fly your drone in restricted areas like airports and cities, you must go through a lengthy administrative process with an uncertain outcome. Thanks to our mobile app, which is integrated with the aviation authorities, you're free of such hassle. The app enables you to visualize flight zones, plan your flight, and apply for authorization immediately. Now, We, of course, already here in the UK, in the States, they already have LANC or LANC, however you want to pronounce it, operational. So they're able to do that via an app and gain permissions, etc., and be given everything from a few feet upwards as far as clearance. And here in the UK, Altitude Angel with the Drone Assist app, which is an app that so many UK flyers already use. If you click on the airports, they either give you the telephone numbers of ATC, etc., to be able to organise permissions within the FRZs, or they even have their new trial system, which is the UTM Ready, where you're actually able to click on a button, go through, fill out some information, and get a digital response back, a digital permission back. I trialed that. There's a video of the flight that I carried out. I actually did trial that at Gatwick Airport and flew within the FRZ with a DJI Mini 2. And when we had a few glitches, had a few issues with it, but when it worked, it was excellent. And we were able to gain permission and fly in that FRZ. So it's already there on the Drone Assist app, and this is obviously a similar version of that. And again, convenient flight management through our app. Forget flight journals. With our mobile app, management of your drone fleet is an easy task, whether you plan a complex flight operation with many drones or just want to keep an overview of your flights. The app also enables you to visualize the current airspace, including with all its participants, as it is integrated with other air traffic management systems. So again, we're starting to see more talk here of USpace, of UTM, in terms of all drones, all traffic starting to essentially talk to each other and be able to see each other. Now, what's interesting, obviously, is that it's a localized app, so the app itself actually works off of the Wi-Fi and the Bluetooth of your phone. I'm just going to boot it up on my phone here to show you. And it's something which, as you can see here, it does actually have quite a few similarities to the Drone Assist app. And as you can see here at the top, there's the Wi-Fi and Bluetooth signals, so you can toggle those on and off as far as being able to search for them via that. At the bottom here, you've got the sorting the US. Obviously, at the moment, there's 0 drones around me. You'll be probably unsurprised to know there's 0 drones giving off data. And at the bottom here, you can sort them by UAS, ID, time, or distance. So you can actually go from that point of view. So at some point, you'll be able to look at these kind of apps. This is just one of them. This is a free one. And actually look at the drones that are active in that area. Now, that obviously looks at things from a Bluetooth and a Wi-Fi point of view. So the Bluetooth and Wi-Fi, this is a modern Samsung phone. So the Bluetooth and Wi-Fi are pretty good. But of course, this isn't a network ID. This isn't something which is running across the internet. This isn't something which is linking out that way, basically. So it is localized. I don't know whether that makes anybody feel safer from the point of view that people knowing your location when you're flying your drone need to be already within that location. So are we really going to see people roaming, looking for drone pilots, etc.? I still don't like the idea of having the pilot's location where they're actually stood with the controller open to anybody apart from law enforcement personally. And I don't see really an absolute reason for that apart from, as I say, law enforcement and authorities needing to know, or even if air traffic really want to know that. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that certainly plays out. Now, there's obviously also the whole thing with remote ID, UTMs, etc., and the conversation as far as how this will impact things in terms of beyond the visual line of sight flights. Is this going to be the way? Is this going to be the fact that you can track all of the drones and that type of thing? Is this going to be the way that we're going to be able to access beyond visual line of sight? I've got concerns about that. I've got doubts as far as whether or not remote ID in the form in the US, or the forms that we're talking about over here in the EU and the UK, and being able to be tracked by apps and everything else like that, I don't know whether or not that really removes that many hurdles in terms of BV loss. I think the next stages of UTM and that type of thing are going to really be the absolute key on this, frankly. So let's have a very quick look in the chat and see what you guys are saying about this. Mike Miller, good to see you, sir. So they can rob you of your drone. Yeah, that is the fear that people have, and Johnny DLT saying exactly the same thing. Ramdonko, anyway, almost there. A bit more than a bit. Okay, sorry, you're talking about something else. Maybe plug in your DJI to show it on the app. I would do that, Audio Gek, and I did think of doing that, but I'm actually going to do a separate video clip for the next live show to show that, because frankly I don't want to give away the precise location of my studio, if you don't mind, which of course it would show. Ellis being saying Karen's will have a field day with this. Yeah, it's an interesting one. It's an interesting one because obviously we're in an aviation world where everything's very open, everything's very transparent, but to me, the fact that the drone is flying and that you're able to see that on an app, I can see positives from that point of view. So if it was just the fact that the app was showing, I don't have as much of a problem with it, if that makes sense, Michael, because the drone flying, and actually someone looking it up, if I was able to check this screen and it showed the drone and it's got, you know, the data it's supposed to be having, and you know, it's a legal tracked flight, etc. Okay, I'm going to be more relaxed about that. It's going to become more of a run-of-the-mill thing for me to see drones. What I don't see the point of is on that app, which is where I agree with you, where the so-called Karens may come into practice, is on that app where we need to have the pilot's location showing to the public. That to me is something which I'm not entirely sure of. John Jones asking what the app is. It's Drone Scanner, as Tourist67 is kindly just answering you there on. And this is just one of the apps. There's going to be many apps on this. I mean, this is a company who obviously they're offering this free of charge. They are also heavily invested in this marketplace. They're going to be selling the modules. They're going to be selling the remote ID standard system to manufacturers as well. So obviously they're going to want to see a good app out there to be able to track and trace these things. Lindsay Hayes says, anyone can steer the future developments. Oh joy, Vlad's boys will love this. Yeah, I mean, that's one of the setbacks with GitHub, isn't it? Local Experimentalist UK says, make sure if you're drinking alcohol tonight to carry contraception. You don't want to hear the sound in 9 months' time. Wow. Okay, thank you for that one. Probably should have read that one before I read it out, but never mind. So Klaus, so if anyone can track down drones, does this mean it will increase drone theft when drones are lost? Yeah, I mean, how this affects criminality is going to be a really interesting one, Klaus, because that is the fear. That is the issue that a lot of people have with remote ID in terms of actually being able to track the pilot's location. I mean, the drone's location, unless there's a real problem, unless that drone ends up crashing, etc., and then it might not be worth stealing, of course, after a heavy crash. But the pilot's location is really the one that a lot of people are interested in. I'm interested as well in terms of privacy. I don't think it's too much of an issue here in the EU and UK, but certainly in the States where they're actually being able to track that, it is an issue. As far as I'm concerned. Paul Taylor, good to see you. Is this new tracking app just for drones? Whilst flying my fixed wing RC planes out in the fields, will I have to have it for that too? Well, we have a situation, Paul, where globally it seems nobody sees the difference between these camera drones on my wall here in these cages and your RC planes. Hence, here in the UK we have DMARES, the Drone and Model Aircraft Registration and Education Scheme. So a change really isn't seen. In the States, they're talking about you not having to have remote ID when you fly in FRIAs, which again, they haven't actually released it, despite the fact that remote ID is effectively in place. They haven't actually announced how to form a FRIA and that type of thing yet. So I wonder if when it comes here in the UK formally, whether we'll see Article 16 exemptions or whether we'll see recognised flying club exemptions. But I know, again, that only really counts for people that have those clubs close to them and have memberships, who can afford memberships to. I know they're not that much money, but it's still extra cost in these times. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that does affect things. But certainly here in the UK, if that kind of remote ID was valid, it would be anything above 250 grams, basically. Klaus, yep, as he's saying, just explain what this is for. Drone flyers, Ramdonko. Remember Hawkins Bazaar Toy Shop, they gave me a single pamphlet, simple design that explained 450-foot line of sight, etc. Seemed sensible. Yeah, that's one of the things as well. I mean, education of pilots is very, very important, and I don't think we've really got to the point where everybody's on the same page as far as how we reach people and how we reach those hobbyists who are very, very new to things, frankly. And thank you, Fly Sky Drones, for reminding everybody to hit the like button. In fact, I'll play another one of my new messages, shall I?
Enjoying the show? Hit the like button, and if you're new, subscribe for more great drone content.
There you go. Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you? So of the just over 100 people watching, thank you very much for being here. If you wouldn't mind, at least half of you going over and hitting that like button, or the dislike button if you don't like the show, but go over and hit one of those buttons. I'd really appreciate seeing that number go up whilst we're still on air. I'd appreciate it. So yeah, but thank you for reminding everybody, Tony. I really do appreciate it. But it is one of these situations. It's one of these issues where I think that it's extremely emotive. So a little bit like I've been having the sort of audit channel stroke in law enforcement discussion on my channel recently, and it's extremely emotive, and sometimes it's difficult to separate the emotion from not the fact but from the actual issue and how to solve them. And I feel that we have that in terms of remote ID and in terms of people's location, etc. Because it is a real risk. If you have a location that is often used by drones, actually identifying the pilot location is going to we are going to end up with issues here. We are going to end up where we see people not necessarily, I don't want to be dramatic as saying people getting hurt, but that isn't a million miles away. And 107 Drones Barclay, great to see you. It's not the same as following commercial aircraft. At airports, the pilots have strong security to protect them from the nefarious view. 100% agree with you, Barclay. 100% agree with you. And in my two previous remote ID recorded videos rather than live streams, I discussed exactly that point. I talked about the fact that with flight radar, we had a clip from the FAA, one of their live streams, where they said it's okay because the rest of aviation is transparent. We're just bringing drones in line with the rest of aviation. You can see where the airplanes, where the 737s are flying, where the 747s are going. You can even see where they're going, etc. It's all perfectly safe. And as Barclay is pointing out, as I pointed out in those videos, the issue there, of course, is those planes are landing and taking off within secure locations, quite rightly secure locations, to stop that nefarious activity from occurring. And of course, the pilot of that aircraft is also on board that aircraft. So they are many thousands of feet away. Whereas, of course, a pilot of a drone is stood on the ground, concentrating on their flight, concentrating on their mission, whether be it recreational or be it commercial. So it is, I absolutely agree with you there. It is a very different thing to do. And Billy MTB, I do prefer to fly incognito. I don't want to be telling everyone where I am, and that does come to the heart of it, because we do get, whenever we talk about this particular subject as well, we do get a lot of people talking about the fact that, hey, if you've got nothing to hide, you've got nothing to fear. There's nothing to worry about, and I don't mind my data going out. And I do understand that sentiment, and I do agree with parts of that argument, but I just don't see the reason why. And I think we're being dragged along on something and being brought along on a journey of the sub 400 foot airspace being monetized and being opened up, which I'm actually for. I actually support if it's done properly. But we're not being told why these specific things have to happen in terms of real answers. And I don't see there being a problem with someone saying, actually, I don't want people to know where I'm flying my 2,000, 3,000 pound drone, or £1,000 drone if it's one of the smaller minis, etc. I don't have an issue with that. I don't have an issue with people actually not wanting everybody in the world to know where they are. I do like the fact that these kind of apps, obviously, because of the very nature of the remote ID signal being sent out, being Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, etc., that is the way that you can track on these apps. It's going to be interesting. I'm also going to be interested, actually, in one of my future conversations with the people over at Altitude Angel, to see if they plan to add this kind of functionality to Drone Assist at all, or whether it's going to flip as a secondary public notification app as well. Be very interesting to hear. But thank you both for your comments on that one. Let's see what everybody else here is saying. Lots of comments coming in. Do get the comments in the chat. The idea of these community discussion live streams is partly to talk about the subject matter, partly to talk about what's actually happening with a particular story, and keep you informed of things like the evolution of remote ID with new apps coming out, but also it helps me get the sense of where everybody is coming from. So I know in the next videos that I research, the next videos that I create, that I'm going to be answering the questions and very much going along the lines that everybody wants me to, frankly. And James McLaughlin, North Coast Aerial Photography, great to see you. I just checked my local airports and they all say that they aren't UTC ready. Neither is LHR or Gatwick. Yes, Gatwick is no longer on the UTM trial. It's only a trial thing. I think, let me check this live, but I think on Drone Assist, Biggin Hill might be one of the airports, which is obviously a small airport, but I think from memory, only because I remember there being a notification sent out about it. I'm going to challenge my geography skills here. Biggin Hill, click on it there. It's not coming up for me. Yes, UTM ready. So this is the kind of thing that you can expect to see. Let me get it to blur out my face and bring the thing in. And as you can see here, so I've clicked on Biggin Hill, and you have the flight restriction zone here, the vertical limits, etc., all the usual details you'd expect. And then you have here saying that it's UTM connectivity and the facility is UTM ready. You would then click on that, and it actually takes you across to their system to be able to basically sign in to their Guardian system. Let me just get it to focus again, and it will give you flight authorizations. I should have set up a downwards camera for this tonight, but never mind. So yeah, so that's what it looks like when it's UTM ready. Otherwise, it just gives you the telephone numbers for that airport to make contact, which again, at least it's information, at least it's open information. But if that UTM system actually rolls out, then UTM ready system rather rolls out, then hopefully that will be available in more and more airports. But as I say, I tried it at a major airport like Gatwick, and it did work. There were glitches, but it did work. Carl B, I can kind of see the point of remote ID as well as pilot location. Okay. And to protect the wider public from the 1% who do not act with good intentions. Will it work? No, as they would not use ID anyhow. Yeah, I mean, again, there's that issue, isn't there? Of the fact is, and there is an argument here, and I do know one of the answers to this argument in terms of the fact that anybody with nefarious means, criminals, and I'm talking about criminals using the drones here. If they are acting in a with some form of criminality, if they don't have good intentions of their flight, etc., all the from minor to major things that could possibly happen, they won't use remote ID, they won't be registered, that type of thing. And there is, of course, the argument that those people will then shine out more from the pack who are registered, who have got remote ID working, etc. So actually that one drone that isn't broadcasting, that isn't sending these signals out, etc., will show out more. That works more on network remote ID, in my opinion, but it is still a thing for the localized version. If the rule is stupid or dangerous, you must not comply. There's no one specific. And absolutely, I mean, my video, which I released about probably close to 2 months ago now, certainly 6 weeks ago, that is why remote ID will fail, in my opinion, is basically non-compliance. And that's remote ID in the current system in the US, unless something is done to protect those pilots on the ground. And Paul Taylor answering me on the model plane thing, but my plane only flies within a few hundred meters. My drone, however, flies much further. Yeah, absolutely, Paul. I mean, from day one with the drone registration scheme, I have always felt it was particularly unfair to put all of the RC flyers within the drone side of things as well. I think it's also difficult to find how you separate them. Unless you have people flying at clubs and that type of thing. And I'm not a fan of forcing people to fly at particular locations, especially here in the UK where those clubs then get developed into houses, etc. But yeah, it's a difficult one of how you separate model RC from drones in terms of that. And obviously, the argument is the nefarious reasons they could be used for those as well. But I completely take on board what you're saying, and I've always had an issue with it being completely in one, as it were. I've just seen Kayaking Graham. Hi, good to see you. Hope you're well, sir. Y-O-Y-O-Y. Okay, get this right. Y-O-Y-O-Y. Who wants to know XJet is flying in New Zealand or Geeksvana's hit a tree FPV? Sorry, guys, for the examples. Getting put in a corner with regs and apps Y. Yeah, I understand that, and I think we're going to see a lot more changes in the next few years, and they're going to start coming at a faster rate. There's been a lot of trials happening, and there's been a lot of research into all of this and UTM and everything, and I think it's going to start happening. Just while you mention XJet, I will just play another clip very quickly.
Sit down at the back, please. No pushing and shouting. XJet, Bruce, put that down. And who let John Coopy in here? I don't know, you can't take droners anywhere.
There we go. Always gives me a chance to have a quick drink as well, so there we go. No one specific. I need the like button reminder. It's hard to remember doing it for some reason. Like button smash. Thank you, sir. And anybody else needs another reminder, do hit that like button. And Paul Taylor says, no way will I have a tracking device on my RC planes that I only fly in designated fields away from anyone. And that's the thing is that kind of understandable non-compliance, in my opinion, is very much why I think that they need to be careful. They need to bring everybody along with them. Basically, is really my overall opinion, that if remote ID is that important, if this type of new regulation is that important, then we need to be brought along with them, not just, in my opinion, thrown under the bus in the way that the FAA and the US have done by saying, okay, we're going to have the remote pilot's location available to everybody. You have to broadcast that within the drone, from the drone. I just don't agree with that. I think you need to bring people along with you. And no one specific saying, I stick to Class G airspace personally. I guess everyone can't do that though. Class G equivalent in the UK, yes, indeed. That isn't always possible. And James McLaughlin saying, do you have to be near an airport for it to work on drone assist? No airport, even LHR isn't even showing the digital certificate. Yeah, I've just shown you Biggin Hill, which is many, many miles away from me, that's working on the UTM. I don't know how many are currently live, because it is a trial, so it comes in and out. But Biggin Hill was one of the ones I know was more recently added, so hence I use that. And Graham also says, hate to see where we'll be in 10 years with this. Glad I am remote with many flying spaces. No other hobby is being approached in this way. Must be big money involved, LOL. And yeah, again, I see that argument, but I think there's a good side to the finance coming into the lower airspace, and I think that we could get a lot more, clean jobs. We could get a lot more economy going here in the UK and in the US, across Europe, across the world, with the good use of drones. I just wonder with this whole UTM side, and it's a rabbit hole that I'm going more down in the future on the channel, and you guys are giving me some great ideas as far as how that's going to be impacting you, and it helps me with the content, so thank you. But yeah, I do wonder where it's going to go as well. But I think, as with everything, these things won't be quite as bad when they're here in practice. But the one that just keeps me coming back, the one that really does disturb me, is the whole thing of the pilot location there. I think it doesn't help. And Johnny DRC is saying, I keep hitting the like button, but it doesn't go up. Yeah, thank you, Johnny. Okay, so that's it for this evening. As I was saying, if you want to find out about this this app, Dronetag app, I will put a link to it in the description after the show. But it's dronetag.cz, as they are a Czech company over in Prague, and you can download it from the usual places. They are working with the partners in the industry, so EASA, Air Navigation Services, etc. It is an interesting one. It's something that they're offering free, so it's good to have a little look at it and have a little play with it and see what's actually happening. Yeah, interesting. Paul Taylor saying, I bet the police drones will not show the pilot's location. It will be interesting when this all comes in over this side of the pond to see if there is emergency services exemptions for these kind of things, which I think there already is plans for that to be the case, reading back from the rules as they were intended. But again, it depends what we actually bring in here in the UK. But there we go. That is tonight's Geeksvana Live. Thank you very much for joining me. We've got some more great content coming up soon, including the next in our somewhat controversial police series, where we've got some other ones coming up as far as how and if you should notify police that you're going to be flying your drone. So actually, is it worth dialing 101 to let them know that you're flying your drone? We've also got a video coming up on how to deal with a police officer who doesn't know the drone rules, which I expect to be, again, just as fruity as our recent police videos in the comment section as well. And when I say how to deal with, I mean how to interact. What should you do? What are the steps that you can take to de-escalate, etc. And again, that advice coming directly from the MPCC drone team. So as I say, Thank you for joining us, and I'll see you next time on Geeksvana.
So, that is another show wrapped up. What are you all still doing here? Time to go home, people. Come back next time, though.